Could Britain be about to leave another major European institution? In April 2024, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he'd be willing to see Britain leave the European Convention on Human Rights if it blocked controversial immigration proposals. This has led to an uproar, as it would not only mean exiting the Council of Europe, the main body overseeing democracy and human rights in Europe, but could also open the way for other significant steps, including the reintroduction of the death penalty. It would also have profound effects on Britain's international relations. So, could Britain really be on the verge of another Brexit? Hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name is James Kerr-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict, security and statehood. One of the most significant changes in modern international relations has been the development of human rights. Starting after the Second World War, when the United Nations adopted the landmark Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the framework has expanded dramatically. Today, there are many international human rights treaties, such as the 1979 Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the 1989 Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the 2006 Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. In addition, steps have also been taken to enhance civil and human rights at a regional level. These include the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the American Convention on Human Rights, the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, and of course, the European Convention on Human Rights. These conventions are often supported by legal bodies that can hear cases about violations, such as the African Court of Human and People's Rights, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and the European Court of Human Rights. However, in recent years, there's been a pushback against this, with growing support for sovereignty and increasing unhappiness about the limitations imposed by external courts. Many states increasingly see it as an unacceptable infringement on their sovereignty. This has been highlighted by suggestions that the United Kingdom could leave the European Convention and replace it with a national framework, a decision that would also see Britain leave the Council of Europe. Our story begins in 1949 when 10 European countries came together to create the Council of Europe. This was designed to protect human rights, foster democracy and promote the rule of law across Western Europe. The following year, the Council drafted the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, now better known as the European Convention on Human Rights. Composed of 18 articles, it covered areas such as the right to life, the prohibition of torture and cruel punishments, the right to privacy, the right to freedom of expression, and the prohibition of discrimination, a list that's since grown with further additions. However, perhaps the most significant breakthrough came in 1959 when the Council established the European Court of Human Rights. Based in Strasbourg in France, it was created to enforce the Convention by hearing complaints from individuals and groups. It can also hear cases between states. Since then, it's become the option of last resort for those who've exhausted the legal options within their country. Able to issue fines and order remedies, the court's rulings are binding on members and enforced by the Council of Europe, which has made adherence to the Convention a formal requirement of membership. Today, the Convention and its additions have brought about far-reaching changes to national laws, including the abolition of the death penalty across Europe. So far, the court has now issued 25,000 judgments. Meanwhile, thanks to its steady enlargement before and after the Cold War, the Council of Europe now has 46 members. These range from Iceland in the west to Azerbaijan in the east, and from Finland in the north to Cyprus and Malta in the south. On top of this, the United States, Japan, Canada, Mexico, Israel and the Holy See are observer members. Moreover, Kosovo now looks set to become the Council's next member. Indeed, as things stand, only 2 European countries aren't members of the Council: Belarus, which has never been a member, and Russia, which was expelled in 2022 following its invasion of Ukraine. The question then is whether Britain is now on the verge of becoming one of just 3 European countries outside the Council. To start with, the talk of British departure isn't new. Although it's now on the political agenda, it's been part of the British political debate for almost 30 years. It first came to the fore in 1998 when the Labour government incorporated the European Convention into the new Human Rights Act. Although this was designed to strengthen the protection of human rights within Britain, it soon became a politically sensitive matter for the opposition Conservatives. As they saw it, the move was an unnecessary foreign encroachment in a country that had historically been at the forefront of developing civil and human rights, stretching back to the Magna Carta in 1215 and the 1688 Bill of Rights. From there, anger steadily grew over the legislation's effects on security. This was driven by several cases where radical Muslim clerics were prevented from being deported. It also became caught up with Britain's relationship with the European Union. Although the Council of Europe is wholly separate from the EU, the two are often confused. Knowingly or otherwise, those who campaigned for Britain to leave the EU frequently cited ECHR rulings to justify Brexit. Since then, for many Brexiters, calls to ditch the convention reflect the next logical step in removing any external control over British affairs. However, while all this provides the historical context, the immediate driving force is the British government's attempts to tackle rising immigration. This has led to a highly controversial scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. Despite costing hundreds of millions of pounds, no one has yet been sent to Africa, as the plan has been held up in the British courts. But as the government attempts to work around this, speculation has grown that the issue could next go before the ECHR. All this came to a head in April 2024, when asked whether Britain would accept a European Court ruling against the plan. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that he'd be prepared to leave the convention if that was needed to make the plan work. This has led to angry responses from many political, legal and academic figures who insist that any move to leave the convention would have far-reaching and highly damaging consequences. First of all, they argue that membership of the Council of Europe and the European Court of Human Rights provides a vital extra level of protection for British citizens. Leaving the convention would give them far fewer avenues to challenge government overreach. Secondly, it would undermine Britain's standing in Europe. Leaving aside that the United Kingdom was a founder member of the Council, they point out that Britain's continued membership provides a crucial forum for dialogue with Britain's European partners after Brexit. Thirdly, it would also damage Britain's broader international diplomacy. Leaving the Council of Europe and ditching the European Convention would signal a retreat from Britain's commitment to international norms and agreements and reduce the country's ability to pressure other states to adhere to multilateral human rights conventions. Finally, they argue that it could also fundamentally undermine human rights worldwide. If Britain left the Council, other governments could also start to question why they need to remain a part of an institution that provides their citizens a way to challenge them. Already, there are concerns that Turkey is steadily moving away from the Council. Likewise, Serbia is also seemingly raising the possibility of leaving by opening a debate about reintroducing the death penalty. Meanwhile, other countries, such as Hungary, might also try to follow suit, although in that case, it would create significant complications, as Council membership and adherence to the Convention is a requirement of EU membership. However, those who support leaving the Convention emphasise that the issue is fundamentally about national sovereignty and legal autonomy. They see continued membership of the Council as limiting Britain's ability to make and enforce its own laws, especially on critical matters of immigration and national security. It also allows a foreign court to thwart the democratic will of the British people and forces the United Kingdom to accept positions that they argue may contradict British values and legal principles. Indeed, as they note, other major countries refuse to be bound by such supranational bodies, noting that the United States hasn't ratified the American Convention on Human Rights and that Canada hasn't even signed it. In addition, they insist that many of the points raised by those opposed to leaving are exaggerated. For example, they point out that Britain has an established legal system that's more than capable of protecting human rights without the need for external oversight. They also argue that it's ridiculous to suggest that Britain's ability to raise human rights issues with other countries would be undermined by leaving the convention. Finally, they point to increasing judicial activism, arguing that the court is steadily overreaching its mandate. This was highlighted by a recent high-profile ruling by the court, arguing that inaction over climate change violates human rights. This has even led to more moderate voices on the political right, arguing that the court is risking its relevance by going too far. But notwithstanding the arguments on both sides, the real question is whether Britain could, in fact, go ahead and leave the Convention and the Council. Under Article 7 of the Council's statute, any member can leave by informing the Secretary-General of their intention to do so. The actual departure then takes place at the end of that financial year. But in truth, it would seem almost impossible to see Britain depart. For a start, it would fundamentally undermine Britain's relationship with the European Union and the United States for one key reason. The Northern Ireland Peace Agreement is built around the European Convention on Human Rights. By ditching it, the entire framework of peace in Northern Ireland would be put at risk. Both the United States and the European Union have made it clear that they won't tolerate any steps jeopardising this arrangement. Moreover, while the idea may be popular in the more right-wing parts of the Conservative Party, the media and the general public, many Conservative MPs and even senior ministers recognise the dangers of taking such a significant step away from Europe. Reports suggest that up to 2/3 of the cabinet could vote against it. More to the point, with an election on the horizon, there's now little time to implement such a decision. And with the Conservatives' tip to lose heavily, there now seems little chance that they'll be returned to power to try to put it through in the next Parliament. Meanwhile, as the opposition Labour Party prepares to take office, its leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is not only a strong supporter of further British cooperation with Europe, but is also a renowned human rights lawyer. Leaving the ECHR and the Council of Europe couldn't be further from its agenda. But even though it seems certain that Britain won't leave the Council of Europe, this debate is important. It highlights just how far current discussions about national sovereignty threaten to pull apart the established international order, with profound implications for international relations, politics, and human rights around the world. I hope you found that useful. If so, here are some more videos that you might find interesting. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.